Welcome to Your Number Man, the podcast where we dive deep into business, finance, and entrepreneurship. I am your host, Johan, but you can call me Your Number Man. Over the years, I've worn many hats in the business world, from marketing ace to financial expert. And now I'm here to share my expertise with you. Each week, we'll explore strategies, insights, and stories to help you navigate the complexities of running a successful business. Whether you're a seasoned entrepreneur or just starting, this podcast is your go-to resource for all things business and finance. So grab a drink, settle in, and let's unlock the secrets to building and thriving business together. This is Your Number Man, where we help you achieve a bigger life in business. Hi everybody, and welcome to, I would say it's basically the second last episode of season 1. Don't worry, there's still loads to come, but this season has a little introduction to business finance fundamentals basically. We did talk about a lot of basic things. So we talked about your profit and loss, your gross profit, your break even, your cash flow, how it interacts with the balance sheet, and a profit and loss as well. And we talked about costing and pricing, which I got a lot of good reactions from as well. And then in between, I've mixed it up with interesting guests. And I don't know about you, but I'm really inspired to listen to all the stories. It was just great. Next week, we're going to have a wrap up of the season and basically break down what we've learned and then also where we're going in season 2. So today, I think it will slot in beautifully with the business finance fundamental side of it. A nice topic to wrap up and will give us a good understanding is budgets and forecasting. But before I'm going to talk about that, I think I just want to share my dream I had last night. It was like a really great dream when it started. I arrived with a few of my good mates at a beautiful golf course. Like one of those pictures, if you open one of those golf books, the glossy golf magazines. One of those kind of golf courses. It was just beautiful. And everyone got issued a new golf bag with great new beautiful golf balls, tees, and great clubs. Each of us got a car and a caddy as well. I basically felt like a kid in a lolly shop. I couldn't wait to get to the first hole. But then I went to the first hole, really excited, and I took my tee out, the little peg that you put in the ground. So I stuck it into ground with the ball on top of it. And I look ahead, beautiful fairway. As we say in golf, in front of me, trees, and I can see a bit of water. But I'm supposed to see a flag in the distance, and there's no flag. And I turn to the caddy, and all of a sudden, this caddy is not the friendly bloke that I met earlier at the clubhouse. He's almost like, sounds a bit weird, but almost a bit zombie-like. And I turn to him and say, "Hey, where's the flag?" And he just like very bluntly said, "Well, there's no flag." Is this a 4-par or a 5-par? It's definitely not a 3-par because it's quite a long one. And he said, "No, there's no par on this hole. Actually, there's no par on the entire golf course." Then I woke up and I thought, gee, that's a weird dream. How can you play golf without a flag to guide you and a par? That means you got an indication of how many strokes it's going to take you to get your ball into the hole. A lot of you might not have played golf before. So par, usually it's about 72 strokes that a golf course of 18 holes allow on the average. So your professionals will probably always get it around the 72 or perhaps even a bit lower. What I'm basically saying is in golf, as in life, as in business, we need rules and guidelines, and we need to compare ourselves against benchmarks, because if we don't have targets, you don't have direction, there's no purpose, and technically you can't have a meaningful life or a meaningful business for that matter. I've prepared this podcast last night and then I had this dream. Imagine you play golf on this course without any flags, any benchmarks. Every day, it's basically like a Groundhog Day. You remember that film back in the, I don't know when it was, 80s, 90s, of Groundhog Day. Every day is the same. And that's going to be boring. That's not going to be challenging to live your life or your business like that. So that brings me back to the budget. The budget is the system that gives you an indication how your sales would go, how you would reach your sales, where's your overheads, where's your gross profit. And also, a budget is basically a mini business plan in the language of business, which is numbers. It's a very foundation of planning and strategy. If you don't have it, well, we all know the saying, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I know we've heard that a lot of times, but it's basically what it is. You need the budget. You need a plan when you do a business. And there's no easier, real basic plan than sitting somewhere and just write up a budget. How are you going to do this year? A budget will help you to prepare for certain issues along the way. If there's obstacles, take, for instance, back to golf again. You got your target, you got your par, what you need to, that's what budgets does. It basically gives you that guideline of where to go. And a lot of people don't even talk about budget. They talk straight away about forecasts. I know a lot of companies that doesn't really do budgets. They just do forecasts. I mean, a forecast is technically a part of a budget. A forecast, it's an adjustment from month to month or quarter to quarter, where you look at your historic of the business and you look into the future. If you got a budget, you do it in conjunction with the budget, then your forecast will basically be a rolling of there how the business will pan out at a certain amount of time. So the main difference between a forecast and a budget is where your budget is usually for a financial year or a calendar year over, say, 12 months. Forecast or a rolling forecast can be anything. It can be for the next 6 months. It can be for the next 12 months. It does not have to be over financial year. It could also give you an indication where would your cash flow be in 12 months' time as well, or your debtors, or how much people would you owe money to in 12 months' time as well. So a forecast takes your budget as a base and then use the history to determine how you would look at a certain point in time as well. A forecast is sometimes a little bit more flexible. It will take considerations into account such as cash flow, like I said, debtors management, financial liabilities, and also your inventory levels. There's a lot of people that talk about forecasting as 3D forecasting. In my first episode, I said you get a profit and loss, you get a cash flow and a balance sheet. So a good forecast with the budget as a base will give you a 3D idea of the business. How's the profit and loss going to look? How's the cash flow going to look? How's the balance sheet going to look? Another form of planning or business estimates would be a financial model. Now, a financial model might be a little bit more complicated. I mean, I love doing financial models, and I've probably got to be a little bit of a nerd to really like it. Well, I don't know, perhaps I am a bit of a nerd, I guess, when it comes to numbers. But financial modeling would give you an indication. A lot of companies would use this to sketch scenarios between certain variables as well. A great example will be if you're changing the strategy of your business a little bit. Say, for instance, you've been manufacturing petrol lawnmowers for the last 10 or 15 years and realize the market really wants more robotic lawnmowers for that matter. Actually, I've actually seen a few of them. It's actually pretty cool. So that is perhaps where forecasting would come in. So you will sketch scenarios. So let's move back to budgets, because budget is basically your fundamental, like I said, forecasting and financial modeling, all part of the planning process, but it comes back to your budgeting. So why do we do budgets? And you probably heard this before. And a lot of people would say, well, some budgets are wrong, so why the hell do we bother? I think that's a bit harsh to say that from a business perspective. I'd rather say, like, no budget is 100%, but most of the budgets that you do are useful. I mean, it gives you the opportunity just to go through your business again and put yourself at a certain stage in the future. And then you look back at your business. This is where I got to. What would I have done? So it gives you a better idea to look at your obstacles. It gives you clarity. You basically sketch out a roadmap for your business, as I said before. It's a bit like a business plan in numbers, obviously. It gives you a basis to work on your KPIs, which is your key performance indicators. And your KPIs is sometimes financial KPIs like ratios and your gross profit ideas and, how much heads does it take you to produce a certain amount of sales. But it's also non-financial KPIs, a lot to do with productivity. So we look at productivity numbers for people, which you can slot into your financials as well and see what is the indication between the KPIs and your business numbers, for instance. But we're not going to go into too much detail on that. This is a great thing to talk about in one of my master classes. Your budgets will build confidence. It gives you an indication of your goals. It forms your basis of pricing. Now, if you remember, I've done this exercise a few weeks ago about costing and pricing, where you would sit and you would say, okay, I need to make this gross profit. So prices for my products, my GP is this, and my costing's got to be that as well. So budget will definitely give you that basis. And it gives you that 360 vision, which comes back basically to clarity. I know there's a lot of things that I repeat over and over in this podcast. Please bear with me because there is some important stuff coming out, and I would love for everybody to get a good idea. I just want to stress how important it is to have that budget. My good friend and mentor, Rob, said in his interview, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. Once you give your mind some sort of challenge, it will automatically start working on that. So you can tell your mind, this is the sales that I need to do. This is the gross profit I need to get. I've seen it so many times. Once you've put it on paper, where you want to be, you're almost like manifesting kind of way. Your mind will start working on solutions. Even when you sleep, you might know, I've got to get sales, and you might wake up with a brainwave every now and again. So for instance, if you're going to decide you're going to climb Mount Everest, you got to plan your expedition. You got to look at your team. Who you're going to take with you? What skills is required for that team? And that comes back to your plan. And in your plan, when is your window of opportunity? There's not a big window for climbing Mount Everest. Specifically in the last few thousand meters above altitude, your window becomes very small. So you outline your major goal and give a timeline. And it also helps you to decide what kind of guide are you going to take on this trip, and we're talking about like a Sherpa. So in business terms, it can mean, this is my budget. Do I need a guide? Do I need a coach? Do I need a mentor? Do I need this guy? He calls himself a management accountant. He calls himself your number man. His name is Johan Zanik. Perhaps I need a management accountant as my Sherpa on my way to goals and targets that I've actually mapped out for myself. And now I must say, actually the best budgets, I've done a lot of these, is actually in a few minutes. You sit down in a coffee shop with a client, you've got a pen with you, you've got your phone, but you don't want to go into all the fancy apps. And you ask the waiter, have you got an extra serviette, please? So you open the serviette, you got your pen out, and you write down the little thing. So it's just a guideline. Where's your sales now? What desired profit would be? What is your equity of your company? What rate of return would you like to see on equity? So automatically, you give yourself ideas and targets where you want to go. So the best way then is to go back on this little serviette. You might have asked for another one and write it all down. Okay, so I'm going to get this GP margin. I'm going to get these sales, and I can also increase the margin a little bit by decreasing some of my cost, and I can increase my efficiency. So I might have to increase my efficiencies. I perhaps going to need better systems. I might have to employ an operation manager. So that operation manager go back to your overheads. The new systems, you're going to need somebody to write your new systems. That systems is part of your overheads. You want to increase your sales. All right. So if I can increase my sales by 10%, I have to increase my marketing budget by 3 or 4%. So that marketing budget goes to your overheads. So you understand what I'm trying to say is if you got that guideline, where do you want to go and how you're going to do it, start writing it down on a serviette for that matter. I'm not suggesting we're all going to go and sit in coffee shops and writing our budgets on serviettes, but it gives you a really good indication. There's certain formulas which are banged on about. If you want to know how to get your break even again, and I've said this formula a few times and I'll say it again, you take your overheads and you divide it by a percentage. So, for instance, if your overheads is $2,000 and your gross profit margin is 50%, you divide it by 50%, and then you'll know, well, I got to get $4,000 in sales to break even. So there you go. There's a formula that I keep on banging on about. I think it's very, very useful. And you've done all those things on your serviette. Your cup is not even cold. You might still have a little bit of coffee left in it. And 10 minutes later, you've got a budget. Say, voila, I've got a budget. It's obviously not that simple. You got to go and put your boots on now. And you got to go back to the office and you got to start digging into your Excel spreadsheets or your Google Sheets or whatever method that you like to use to do your budgets. So basically, how to budget, I'll say you need to get some sort of basis where you want to go. And then you look at your history, you look at the market. Where's the market? Going back to the lawn mowing business, is my market going to grow if I keep on producing petrol engines? Perhaps the market wants robotic lawnmowers because we all become very lazy these days, or we're so busy with our work and our kids and everything else that you don't have time to mow the lawn over weekends. Or for some people, it's still nice on a Saturday morning. You take out a lawnmower and you start it up and you do it yourself. Personally, I see it as a bit therapeutic for me, but I'm perhaps different than other people. Anyway, look at your market. What is the need? You'll also have a good look at the trends and what operational systems, like I mentioned, when you sit in the office or you sit in a coffee shop with your little serviette, your marketing, your staff. Who is involved with your marketing service, your marketing process? It's your operational people, it's your marketing people, it's your team, your staff, your admin people. Everybody's got a share, basically. It's your outsiders. The bank might say, well, that big loan that you took out to buy that fancy machine, that overdraft is going to expire soon. So you have to make sure your cash flow is in line. If you're a bigger company, you've got extra shareholders. They'd like to say, well, Johannes, I think it's time for us to get a bit of a dividend in our business. So you got to plan, make sure that you've got enough cash at the end of the year to do the dividends. And then, in the smaller kind of family businesses, and you and your wife has planned a trip to France in August next year. So you got to realize that, first of all, I got to be able to pay myself enough salary to be able to afford my tickets. And I'm also going to be out of operation for a month. So you got to plan your budget according to your needs as well. And on a formal basis, you would look at your chart of accounts. You will try and keep it, KISS is always good. KISS stands for keep it simple, stupid, or keep it straight and simple. Don't open too many sub-accounts. For instance, you just keep it on one line. Like I said, you got to know what your break even is. You got to understand your cost structure. Something that I might talk about at some stage in the future is your profit first approach. That means treat profit almost as part of your overheads. It's something that you got to do consistently on a monthly basis, is showing a profit. It's like an overhead, or like an expense of the company. Like I say, you look at your market, your history, your SWOT analysis. SWOT basically stands for your strengths, weaknesses, your opportunities and threats. One of the threats of the company, there's a few competitors that are getting onto the market. So we really got to be driving our value proposition through our marketing strategy as well. So we might have to spend a little bit more on marketing. That's got to go into your budget. Your strengths are, we're really good at selling lawnmowers at country markets, for that matter. So we're going to perhaps employ a few more salespeople to go to country markets on Saturday mornings and sell our lawnmowers there. And as I mentioned before, your return on investment is very important, your gross profit, your break even. Now, I said a lot about budgets and, why we do budgets, where do you start, your ways to improve your budgets. For instance, you involve your whole team, like I mentioned before, your sales, your ops, your marketing, your admin people. Got to be realistic. We all like to dream and say, what if we can just triple sales next year? Which in some cases, it's not impossible, but you have to be realistic and have clear goals and objectives. And obviously, you monitor and you adjust your budget. And that's probably where your forecasting comes in a little bit more, is your monitoring and adjustment of your budget. My good friend, Dr. Scott Zarkinas, or Dr. Z, as we like to call him, talked about the ancient Stoic. His name was Seneca, who said, no wind is helpful if you don't know where you're going. So if you don't have a budget, then you're basically flying blind. You might as well just carry on with the business and not really be inspired and just make it happen every day. Just make enough money to pay the bills. The business is not going anywhere. It's like flying blind. So you got to be conscious of your goals. The great takeaway today would be, think about a game of golf. Now, I know we're not all interested in golf, and, I haven't probably played a decent game in the last 10 years. But sometimes, like golf and life and business, sometimes you're stuck in the rough, or you found yourself out of bounds, or you found yourself in a sandpit or in the water and you don't know how to come out. But then you can always turn back to your budget, your sense of direction, to find clarity and drive. And soon you'll find yourself back on the beautiful green fairways of life. And before you know it, you can celebrate all your goals. Your budget is your guide. It's your business Sherpa in your pocket. It's your true North Star. And I think we'll leave it at that. Yeah, that's a wrap for today. Thanks for listening. Here is a numeric for all the golfers out there. Tiger Woods can drive for show. Greg the Shark will putt for dough. In business, it is much the same. Make your plan and lift your game. Your team will thrive and profits will grow. And that's a wrap. Thanks for joining me, and I hope today's session was valuable and you feel inspired to take action in your business. Remember, business success is about more than just numbers. It's about passion, determination, and a relentless drive to pursue your dreams through the help of numbers. So keep pushing forward, learning and striving for a bigger life in your business. If you found this podcast valuable, be sure to subscribe. Follow us on socials and leave a review if you enjoyed today's episode. And one last thing, if you want access to additional resources that will help you fast track your cash flow and financial freedom, visit yournumberman.com.au. Until next time, this is Johan Zanik, your number man, signing off. Thanks again.